Ooh. Why do you always look like no?
Oh, okay.
You are listening to the only show where a former police officer, alongside a current law school student, tackle politics, the legal system, and corruption. The show, known around the world as Qualified Immunity.
It's time to talk about custody.
Okay.
As we record this, it is Thursday, November 5th, 2020. And the Mayans got it wrong.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be 2021. I'm convinced of that now.
Although things have been getting progressively weirder since 2012. You have to admit.
Okay.
I mean,
True, because they got married in 2013.
maybe 2012 was just. Maybe 2012 was just the beginning of the end, or.
Here's the thing, and I'm going to say this up front.
Like that starts the clock, or.
And I told this to you and my wife. I told this to multiple people off air. I had a preference on who won the presidential race. I did not vote for either of them because I live in the middle of Oklahoma. My vote doesn't matter.
Yeah.
However, it had to be settled on election night.
Hmm.
Newsflash, it is 48 hours later and it's still not settled. It's not even close.
Well, and it probably won't be for at least another. I don't know. Probably.
I don't. No.
I mean, Bush v. Gore was not settled until the second week of December.
I at this juncture in time, you don't settle this. I'm going to piss some people off by saying this. In all reality, it no longer matters.
What? Who's president?
Yes.
I told you that.
No, because in 16, you can say it was an upset.
Okay.
You were looking at, and this could go on both sides either way. Because I'm just going to play this out. If Trump wins, and maybe this episode will actually get on there and not get taken down like the last 4.
Yeah.
However, it's post-election, so it might get on there. If Trump wins through the court system and voter fraud is proven, then the left will lose their ever-loving shit for 4 years.
Like they did the last 4 years.
But the reason I say this time is different is this time there's the appearance of enough voter fraud that I think the right will lose their shit too. I mean, Arizona Election Board already shut down today because they had armed people walking up to it.
Yeah.
This is different. Win or lose. Now, do I think there's voter fraud? Yes, I do. I think there's been voter fraud in every election since at least 2000.
My dad and I were talking about that earlier today. We were talking about, everybody says, oh, the Democrats are, there's voter fraud in this election, the Democrats, blah, blah, blah. I'm pretty sure the Republicans do a little bit of that too. Somewhere. I mean,
somewhere. I don't know where. It's probably in deep south, hillbilly red country.
But people act like this is something new. This has been going on.
This has been going on for decades.
I mean,
the problem is this time it's apparent.
I mean, I talked to people that were running for office back in the 90s, and they talk about, oh yeah, there was a lot of election fraud.
Not on the presidential level.
Wouldn't surprise me.
And you made the comment earlier. What's the difference between now and there's no difference between now and 2000s or 2000. There's a massive difference. Everybody sees everything all the time.
Yeah.
You didn't have that pre-04, pre-08. The entire reason a lot of the reason Barack Obama gets credited, if you take out everything else, is how effective he was at using social media. That really didn't exist before '08.
Yeah.
So now you're legitimately talking about, this time it's apparent. I don't care what side you're on in this. The worst thing that could ever happen to America, and what I believe has just proven beyond a reasonable doubt that we are a banana republic at this point. And people can get pissed at me off. Well, that's un-American. That's un-American. What is the most un-American thing in the entire world right now is you don't know how many votes are real, how many votes are not real, how many votes are legal, how many votes are not legal. You have no idea who in the fuck actually voted for president of the United States.
Well, that's the other thing. I kept telling people this election doesn't actually matter. I mean, it doesn't really all that much.
You have absolutely no idea.
Well, that's another reason it doesn't matter. I mean, the election does not matter because we will never know who actually won.
No. That's why I said I had a preference over one major candidate versus the other. That being said, even if I lost, I wanted it to be settled on election night. I'm a libertarian. I'm used to losing. I'm trying to think of an actual race that I voted for that won. One. I had one.
You think libertarians do any voter fraud?
No, they can't organize a fucking picnic, much less voter fraud.
That's true. I was just thinking, Republicans and Democrats probably both do it.
But we have come to the point, and I have argued against this for years. Especially with you. Maybe it's time we just split up. That's all you're going to say to that?
I was just enjoying that awkward silence.
Maybe it's time we as a country just went our separate ways. Because
unless you want me to say I told you so.
Because do I think there's cheating in election? Yes, I wholeheartedly believe there's cheating in elections. I've seen it with my own eyes. That being said, I don't care who wins in this. Pick a side. Formulate an argument. Articulate a position. If Trump wins in the court system, because it will go to the Supreme Court, where he appointed 3 out of the 9 justices on there,
Yeah.
he stole the election.
I guess that's another big difference from Bush v. Gore and now.
Trump appointed a third of the Supreme Court. If Biden wins, there's questions. There's a shit ton of questions when it comes to Biden and the votes and how magically 143,000 votes come in and 100% of them are for Biden, and how you've got an election year where supposedly you have 90 to 95 to 100% of turnout of registered voters in some precincts, which is, if you know anything about politics, statistically insane.
Yeah.
Average voter turnout on a bumper crop year is 60%. Like, if you're like, oh my God, we had amazing great voter turnout, 60% of people showed up.
I mean, I ran the numbers for, I think it was for the county that I live in, and it was 10% were registered to vote, and of those, less than 50% showed up.
Yeah, like normally about 40 to 45% show up for a general election of a presidential year. But you have absolutely, the damage is done. It doesn't matter who's president now.
Yeah.
Because 50%, because this is damn near 50-50. Go look at the popular vote. And a commentator on Fox News said this, and I agree with him. The popular vote is nothing but a statistic. It doesn't actually matter.
Well, I mean, constitutionally, it doesn't.
And he's right, and I agree. I've agreed with him a lot over the years. However, look at the popular vote. it is literally 50-50. So
Yeah.
one way or the other, around 60 million people are going to believe the election got stolen from them. And if, say 10% of them do something about it. Hell, I'll even go smaller than that. Say 1% do something. Do you want 600,000 people going up against another 600,000 people in what could become a very violent and chaotic situation, to where I come back to maybe it's time we just split up?
Those numbers are awkwardly familiar.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
So you're on board now.
I don't see another way out because, well, I do, but
I mean, I've been making this argument for a while. If you're this
polarized.
if you're this obsessed with an election and you're this upset when it goes for the other side, regardless of whether there's voter fraud or not, maybe it's time to think, hey, maybe this election isn't going the way it should. Maybe we should, do something for the next one.
And I know this
not
is an awful
your
word, and I
voice.
know we're not supposed to say it, and I know it was settled in 1865, and yada, yada, yada. But there is a legal avenue to secession. There
It
is.
depends on what you mean by legal, but yeah.
There's a constitutional avenue.
Well, and when people get into this argument with me, I tell them, up until Lincoln, every president before that was okay with it.
Yeah.
I mean, there are actually direct quotes from presidents before that say, "Hey, if you want to go, go." And that's the way the Constitution was originally designed. I mean, you had to ratify it, and if you're, ratifying it, that's, theoretically your consent, and if you're giving consent, that means you can theoretically take it away. So, as a state,
I don't care what side of this spectrum you fall on. I've got friends that fall on the Biden side. I have friends that fall on the Trump side. I mean, obviously, given where I live and given what I've done, I've had way more friends fall on the Trump side than the Biden side. However, if you believe what's being said, and do I believe there's massive voter fraud? Yes, I do. I wholeheartedly believe that. Do I think you can prove it? No. Do I think Joe Biden's going to be the next president of the United States, contrary to what I said in an episode that got taken down already? Yes. Do I think it actually matters? No. Because at this point, at least 60 million people are not going to believe it. They're going to say it was stolen. And my point, and it comes back to this, before this leads to violence, how about we just decide to shake hands and Trump can be our president and Biden can be your president? We'll call it good. They'll just be two different countries. Or we go back to the way we were actually set up, to where we're united sovereign states.
federal republic rather than just a republic.
Yeah.
Or
A
democracy,
federation.
whatever you want to call that. Federation, yeah.
We have come to a point, and I would even make the argument. See, I could see before this states dividing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could justify that argument. I could see states dividing because there are some states that are so drastically one way or the other that you know what I'm saying.
You mean dividing like California into several different states?
Yeah, or
Okay.
Eastern, Western, Washington, Oregon.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there have been movements for that. I know California had a movement for that.
Calex, it.
Well, like, are you talking about withdrawing from the union?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, I mean there was also what I was initially talking about was dividing states into other states, like Jefferson.
Okay, yeah.
Jefferson was
That's Idaho.
That was California.
Was it
It
California?
was Northern California.
Okay. I mean, I want to say Jefferson ran further east.
I
than just
think it
California.
did. There was a part of Oregon in there too.
Yeah.
It's just you're running into this moment of time of going, I could make the debate for that.
Mhm.
I can no longer make the debate for certain. The problem becomes Washington. Everybody's obsessed with Washington. Everybody wants to be in Washington. When you talk to people starting their quote unquote political careers, they want to go to Washington. So the problem now becomes we are way too centralized in a country of 330 million people.
I think it's more than that now, but
330 million legal people.
splitting hairs. I mean, at a certain point, how big is too big? I mean, how big can less than 600 people? How big can you get it before 600 people can't govern it effectively?
You're there.
Yeah.
You're there. We are to the point of no return.
And I think,
And nobody wants me to say that.
well,
You saw America die on November 3rd, and there was no applause because nobody won.
Yeah.
The entire world is looking at us right now because we are quote unquote the only superpower left. The entire world is looking at us going, what in the fuck is going on in America?
yeah.
So is the senile man or the jackass going to be the guy that has the nuclear football?
Yeah.
You have no earthly idea who's going to be inaugurated January 20th. And it doesn't matter. Because if Biden wins by electoral college or it goes to the House of Representatives and Biden wins and Pence is VP and only 2020.
Answer Trump.
Well, somebody made the argument that it has to be the vice presidential ticket. And I've never read it like that. I've read the Senate can make whoever vice president. Because under the theory of,
I'll have to go back and read that.
yeah, because under the way I understood it, if nobody gets to 270, House picks the president, the Senate picks the vice president. I didn't think it had to be the vice presidential nominee. So I don't know the answer to that because I would love to see a White House. I would effing love to see a White House where Biden was president and Trump was vice president, or vice versa. It'd be freaking great. It'd be the greatest damn reality show this banana republic we've left with since the end of time. Because there is an argument to throw out all the votes, all the states that are controversial. And I'm to that point. I said this before we went on air. If you want to make it legal, every state that is within a 2% margin, go back through and stop right now. Throw all the ballots out and say November 22nd, we're redoing this. It's election day. You leave it wide open transparency. Show up to vote. Whoever wins, wins.
22nd.
Yeah.
Okay.
What?
It seems very specific.
I have my reasons for saying this.
Okay.
It's a very important date in history.
Do you think that creates any ballot access problems?
I don't give a fuck. Do you want to vote?
Okay.
What?
I'm just like, and I'm not talking about mail-in ballots. I'm talking about like absentee ballots.
Do you want to vote?
Okay, so the answer is yes.
Okay, the election is November 22nd from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
So no absentee ballots.
No. I don't agree with absentee ballots anyway.
Okay.
This is election day. You have known for how long this is election day?
True.
Prior planning prevents piss poor performance. We are in the middle of the most fucking piss poor performance in American fucking history.
That's fair. Okay, well,
Tulsi Gabbard 2024.
do you really think that they could? You don't really think they could organize an election?
I do think they could if they wanted to. They
If
don't
they-
want to.
Yeah.
Because Biden thinks he wins and Trump thinks he got cheated and yada yada. And Biden's on Amazon ordering more ballots for Nevada right now. Like, who, at this point, what the fuck does it matter?
Yeah.
The damage is done. At least 60 million people are going to feel like they got robbed or cheated or stolen an election. And outside of that, nothing else matters. Because there will, unless this gets cleared up, like I just said, or something to the effect, there will never be another legitimate election in American history. You're done. It's over. Period. Because somebody will always be able to say, well, they're going to buy it again like they did in 2020, appoint enough court justices. Or if you're on the other side, well, they're going to stuff the ballot. They're going to go, Amazon 2-day prime, because you got until 3 days after the election in Pennsylvania now.
Do you think this becomes the new norm?
I think everything that you know is normal ended when you woke up on November 4th. Because if you can't have a legitimate election, the federal law in which that election is supposed to decide and enact and enforce no longer matters.
So do you think in 2 years or 4 years or whatever,
If
you think it's just like, well, here we go again?
I don't
Here's
think anybody
another
gives.
election.
It's gonna be who won? Go. And
But-
people, and I'm telling you this, and
But it's just going to be like, oh, great, here we go again. Here's another fraudulent election, whatever.
I think, it trickles down.
What do you mean it trickles down?
I mean, if the presidential election isn't secure,
Okay.
what else can trickle down to? There's no way. Me and 17 of my friends voted for that county sheriff, and I know there was only 4 other people in line. There's no way he got 97 votes.
Yeah.
And if you see violence arise out of this one, hold Betsy bar the door. Because then any election that people disagree with will give way for violence, and then you are no different than Bosnia.
If this is going to get fixed, I think that's when it gets fixed is when people actually lose a job over it. When your county commissioner or your county sheriff, when you vote for them and you know exactly how the numbers are supposed to look and it looks wrong, I mean that's actually going to get violent
Yeah, it is.
because you actually know where to go and what to do about it.
And here's the thing. You and I have 2 drastically different personalities. But what people don't understand, and a lot of people that listen to this don't understand, is we're both trying to avoid violence. Am I passionate about what I believe? Do I speak my mind sometimes to my own detriment? Yes. But I am passionately trying to avoid violence. Because violence begets violence begets violence, and nobody gets anywhere by killing each other. Except family feuds and generational long feuds, and it's you could turn the United States of America into a third world country in 5 years. Because there will be 500 years of retribution. And guess what? There's no Christopher Columbus, there's no Salem West, there's no new world. This is it. We have conquered the known world. Whatever we create is whatever you live with. But at this point, I don't know if there's a going back. I don't know if you change anything. Because even if you did it right, in my opinion, and anything that was in question, you throw out November 22nd, or hell, December 1st, or December 7th. This is election day. We're redoing this. We're going to get it right. We're going to count the ballots. If you show up to vote, your ballot gets counted. If you're in line from 7A to 7P, you get to vote. No absentee ballots, no bullshit, no anything. Figure the fuck out who won. Outside of that, and I don't think they're going to do that because that would logistically take, a hamster to do, and they don't have the patience of a hamster. Outside of that, the United States of America, as you know it, is gone. Because as right now, I mean, I will say this: I preferred Trump win over Biden because I would prefer somebody less senile than the other one. But even on the Trump side of this, I don't know who won. If I want to say I'm on the Trump side of this or the Biden side or whatever, I don't know who won.
Yeah.
The side that's going to win and the person that's going to take the White House January 20th is going to run, yeah, we won, fuck the orange Cheeto, blah, 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 blah. Or the other side's going to be like, yeah, we told you sons of bitches cheated.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter anymore. It is time for the United States of America to pull itself up by its bootstraps and get back to what we should have been, where you could believe in something again. Because I don't give a damn who takes the White House January 20th. I don't, because I have no confidence that they fair and equally won an election. None. I don't have confidence that they won an election by that less than 20% wasn't total bullshit.
Yeah.
I absolutely don't have that confidence anymore. Like 4 years ago, yeah, okay, so you got maybe five, let's say margin error of 5%. That 5% is a little hinky. Yeah. You go through history. How much a 5% margin of error I can see. Human error is a thing.
Yeah.
Nobody's 100% perfect, except for my wife. She's a saint. Nobody's 100% perfect.
Yeah.
The other side of that is human error is a thing. I understand that. I accept that. Even in elections, it's a thing. But you were talking about 20 to 30 to 40 to. You're legitimately talking about 40% in some of these states. It's just like, ta-da! Here's the votes.
Yeah. Hundreds of thousands of votes.
Hundreds of thousands of votes. You're not talking about 10 to 20,000. You're talking about Trump was in the lead by hundreds of thousands of votes in Georgia, and it's down to 1,700. You are legitimately talking about we can't stop counting the votes because we don't know how many we need yet.
And that's if you're even counting.
Yeah, I don't think they're even counting.
Was it Pennsylvania where they just basically just said,
Yeah, we're done.
I'm actually kind of worried about I don't know. You said earlier something about third world country. I'm kind of worried about, it. You mentioned third world country. You do understand, like, if we get to that point, like, with that kind of uncertainty, you just can't run a business. I mean, you can't do anything.
Dude, you're already there. Like, you had people walking up to election boards armed.
Yeah.
You're there. That's why I said. I cared if Biden won. I cared if Trump won. I cared. However, I would much rather have at, midnight looked up Biden wins. Okay, cool. I can deal with that. I can't go to bed. Like, and logically, well, most mail-in ballots, you go to bed and Trump's winning in Wisconsin by a decent amount. He's winning in Michigan like by 6%. He's winning in Pennsylvania. He's winning in North Carolina. He's winning in Georgia. Fox News, I can pull their head out of their ass because they're the only ones that called Arizona. And now he's cut the lead to like 30,000 votes when supposedly he was going to lose by 400,000. He's literally like, he's leading, and he was leading when I went to bed, and I went to bed late. He was leading in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, somewhere else. Oh, Alaska. All of a sudden, in the middle of the night, literally middle of the night, Wisconsin flipped by like 200,000 votes. It just came out of nowhere. Michigan did the same thing. Pennsylvania, they won't call. It's too close to call. North Carolina's too close to call. North Carolina's not close at all. Georgia's too close to call. Meanwhile, Biden has less of a margin in Arizona. And I mean, I'm showing my bias here because I would have preferred Trump over Biden. But I also think there's a higher legal argument to say, what the fuck was that?
Well, you mentioned preferring Trump over Biden. All these Republicans and all these Democrats and arguably some libertarians, independents, whatever, they all thought, oh, the worst case scenario is if Biden gets elected. Oh, the worst case scenario is if Trump gets elected. I think we're looking at the worst case scenario.
You're looking at the worst case scenario right now because I said this to you, and this episode got taken down by Apple and Spotify. But I sent it to you off air because we got super censored. But I said this to you off air. The worst thing that can happen on election day is nothing.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter who wins now. Because you're never going to convince 60 million Trump voters.
Well, and from this point, I mean, who decides this election? Is it the Supreme Court? I mean, where are we going with this? Who's going to actually decide this?
It depends on Nevada. It depends on Nevada and Arizona.
Well,
because if Arizona flips, well, I don't know. If Arizona flips to red and Georgia flips to blue, and then Nevada flips or goes blue,
but
nobody's at 270.
Is it concerning at all that the Supreme Court might actually decide who wins this election?
I think they're going to.
That doesn't worry you at all?
It doesn't surprise me.
I mean, you're having a group of people who are not elected decide who is going to be the next president.
I'm going to say this to my own detriment. If you were president of the United States and you'd want a miracle, and you saw voter fraud coming 2 to 3 years in advance, and they've been talking about it for the last year, had the opportunity to appoint a third of the people who may or may not decide if you won an election or not, what would you do?
So it's just convenient that they've all died or retired. Has anybody retired?
No. Died.
You've had
Scalia, Ginsburg. I don't know who the third one was. Because Kennedy's still on the bench, isn't he?
Was Kennedy the one that did Kennedy retire?
Maybe somebody did retire.
I can't remember who.
Because it was Kavanaugh, then
Kavanaugh, Gorsuch,
and
what's her name?
the fascist.
Okay. Yeah. Barrett.
Barrett. Sorry, the theocrat. That's interesting. Now, I think about
Kennedy retired.
Okay. Which I find super interesting because Kennedy was not.
Yeah, he retired in 2018.
Kennedy was not a hardcore righty.
Well, he was nominated by Reagan. So,
Not a hardcore righty.
but Reagan's political views align somewhat with Donald Trump's.
Well, they sure had two different ways of showing it.
Well, they're both anti-gun.
It's alright. You're right. It just you're stuck at this point where it no longer matters who wins the election.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm a little bit worried and actually kind of offended that the Supreme Court might actually decide.
Would you rather have Congress do it?
It would at least be constitutional.
Not unless you put a PVT at the door.
Well, no, I mean,
I think you should have to blow the tube to vote. I really do. Like, I'm not actually kidding when I say that. I really think if you were making a vote on the floor of the Congress or the Senate of the United States, that you should have to prove you're sober.
that sounds nice. Are you really worried about it being rigged, though?
You're right.
Because you know that's going to happen.
I know. Well, I guess you used too much mouthwash.
Come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
And anytime you set up any sort of restriction like that, there's room for rigging.
I know. And it's time. It's time for us as a country to just separate.
Well, there's an argument that I don't have very often with people because it's kind of a scary argument. You can't fix institutionally what is wrong with people's character.
You can't legalize morality.
I mean, that's one way of putting it.
You can't regulate it either.
But I think the Constitution has shown that institutions are going to fix the problem of human nature.
I also just want to point out we want to keep Nevada.
You want to keep it.
I wholeheartedly want to keep Nevada. I've argued that on Facebook all day long.
Does Nevada want to keep you?
Probably not.
Just for the record, poll workers are not strippers.
That is a highly debatable subject.
If they were,
Nevada would have counted already. You're done. And the sad part about it is, on January 20th, there's going to be somebody with the right hand on the Bible, and everybody's going to be clapping. And hopefully we will be watching it together, because I'm going to turn to you and I'm going to say one simple phrase. So this is how liberty dies.
By the way, it's the left hand.
Right, true. Left hand, raise your right hand. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't matter anymore, and unless you take these swing states, and there's at least 5 of them, and go revote in person, 7 to 7, hell, 6 to 9, 6 to 10. Who gives a shit? Start at 12 midnight. It's midnight to midnight. Unless you go revote, it doesn't matter. Because even me, as a person in the middle, will never be able to look at you and say that person definitively, legally won an election. It's time for us as a country to step back and say, maybe we have different visions for the future. Maybe we have different ideas. Maybe. Just maybe. You try your way, I'll try my way.
Well, welcome to the movement.
November 3rd, 2020 will be a sad day in American history. I don't know if it will quite equate to the day Caesar was stabbed. But maybe we come out of the other side of this as better people. Maybe we don't. However, Doesn't matter who wins, you're in a rough 2 years. Because this will build, and it will build, and it will build. And if it can happen in a presidential race, it will happen in a governor's race. And governors are way more accessible than the president of the United States. And there's going to be a lot of governors on the ballot in 2022. And if you think people are going to be pissed now, because by the way, for all the Democrats out there, if you think Donald Trump is going anywhere, the best thing that can happen in the entire world for your cause is he stays in the White House. Because what do you think he's going to do when he's out there stumping and campaigning for people? And he doesn't have the restrictions of being president of the United States. You want to unleash a monster? The monster's already there. What are you going to do when he's campaigning for people and doesn't have to worry, legally about saying go kick their door in? Go take the fight to him. Stand up and stand by. What if it's no longer stand up and stand by? It's go get him. He's a populist and a nationalist, and he's got 60 million people, 20 million of which are probably diehards. That will torch shit because Donald Trump told them to. It doesn't matter who wins unless there's a revote in at least 7 states. If there's not, the funeral for the great American experiment has begun. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Graham Engel, and welcome to 2020. I look at it like, oh my god, we're only at 42 minutes, but
We done?
I'm out of things to say. Buy a gun, learn how to use it, store some food. Go ask your grandparents about camping techniques. There's very, very few people in this country that are prepared for what's coming. Economically, civil unrest. All because we couldn't just have a fair election with a human margin of error. I can accept a human margin of error. This, on either side, it's not a human margin of error. It's intentional deviance. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, and everybody wants to bastardize those first 3 words, but if we the people aren't being heard, then it's no longer we the people. You are hinging on the absolute disintegration of the American dream. The American experiment, the American purpose, the American, whatever you want to call it. maybe it's time as a country to realize the melting pot isn't melting anymore. In fact, it's boiling over and it's about to start a really bad fire. And I've lived through a fire in the last year. It's not fun. Secession is the only way right now, outside of a revote, that I see this becoming a peaceful resolution. And that saddens me greatly. Because America isn't exactly America anymore. Well, we tried. Any final thoughts?
I have to get a new catchphrase.
Yeah, there you are.
We're just going without this one.
I thought of one.
What?
You're going with no, I thought of a catchphrase for you.
Oh dear.
Why do you always say "oh dear"? I actually have some decent ideas once in a while.
Once in a while. What's the saying? Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Even a blind squirrel finds a nut.
What?
Even a blind squirrel finds a nut. Every once in a while.
I don't know if I've heard that one.
Really?
Where'd you get that one?
Urban country?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, even a blind squirrel will find a nut once in a while. Be bold by gold.
That's funny.
I actually was like, I was driving down the highway today.
Don't buy gold. Buy silver. It's more practical.
And then his religious preference came out. Gold is not meant to be practical.
No. I mean, you can't buy anything with it. You can't get it small enough.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to say keep the change.
Okay.
Oh, I thought of another one for you too. I don't remember what it was. I just. We're in a different era of American society.
Keep your powder dry. It's not.
No, it was something. It was.
I've always liked that one.
Yeah. It was catchy too. I don't know.
I'll think of something.
I'm totally just stunned by the state of America right now. And the fact that I can legitimately say without a doubt, it no longer matters who wins.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because before, it's mattered. It's legitimately mattered who won president of the United States. It was two very different philosophies, etc. Now it doesn't matter. Whoever wins can be called a cheater by the other side and not be wrong.
Tough. the
problem is people are getting violent. And violence only begets more violence, and I would love to avoid it. Today of all days, I would love to avoid violence. However, that doesn't look like it is to be our future. Take care of the people around you. That's all you can do. And remember, Washington wasn't wrong when he said political parties will end this country. You have watched the beginning of it. Where can they find you on Twitter?
Well, I guess that hasn't changed. I'm on the Twitter at the Lucas Going.
And for this moment in time, I'm on everything else. That may or may not change. On Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. I'm missing one. TikTok.
That may change. Ooh. I mean, I'm pretty sure you're not getting banned, but
No, if I did, it would be voluntary. I'm running out of time. I have too many things to do, not enough time in the day, and I'm running out of time to talk and fight and debate and argue with people that I've never met on sites that don't matter, because we're stuck in a paradigm where it does not matter who president of the United States is. And I say this tonight, or today, or whenever you listen to this episode, with more vitriol than I've ever said it before, and more, please listen to what I'm saying. Question everything. Fall for nothing. And be prepared for anything. And with that, this has been the first of many to come New America episodes. To Valhalla, guys. They're still there, aren't they?
this is the part where you do the Ferris Bueller and you're like, go home. Why are you still here?
Go home. Why are you still here?